In today's video, I'm going to show you how you can update a dated old coffee table and make it look modern. We're going to have a little help from some pre-made legs, no saw required, and this makeover starts right now. This coffee table came my way from one of you guys, from one of my followers. They messaged me, they figured out that I live in the Nashville area, and she was gonna be giving away these tables, and she said, hey, can I give these to you and have you do something with them? And I loved this coffee table. The solid top is really beautiful. I just think this base is really dated, and even painting it, it's super heavy. So I wanna give it a new look. There's lots of DIY coffee tables that you can make and build on YouTube, but I wanna make it a little easier for you guys. There's lots of ways to do it without a bunch of tools. So I have these pre-made legs that I got at Home Depot, and we're gonna try to attach these here. But the first thing I need to do before I mess with the base or the legs is get this old varnish off. I wanna give it a natural look, so I'm gonna use a stripper to take that off. The varnish on this tabletop is really, really thick, so you can use a sander on that, but it is gonna take forever, so I'm trying to save myself a little bit of time. Yesterday, I tested out the carbide scraper on here, and that worked really well, but I also wanted to test out a chemical stripper, and this took the varnish off so well and really fast, and it's gonna take a lot less effort than this carbide scraper. So I'm gonna go ahead and put my Blue Bear soy gel over the whole top and get this stripped off. I've let this set for 30 minutes. When you put this on, you wanna make sure it's really, really thick. So I'm gonna use a plastic putty knife so I don't damage my wood, and we're gonna see what scrapes off. Once I got the majority of the varnish off with my plastic putty knife, I used some coarse steel wool to get into the details on the side of the table. As the varnish came off in chunks, I used a clean cloth to wipe back all that gunk so it wouldn't clog up my steel wool. I have a really good amount of this varnish off. This was the easiest chemical stripping job I've ever done. Don't think that they're all gonna be this easy, but I really do like that stripper. I've used it on quite a few projects and it seems to always get the job done. What I like about it, since it's soy-based, I can actually clean off all this residue with some Simple Green. So I'm gonna rinse off all this remaining stripper. After I was done cleaning, I took some clear water and rinsed. Now it's time to try to get rid of this base. It looks like it's gonna be pretty easy, so I'm gonna get my drill out and try to remove this. That came off so easy. I'm really surprised how easy that was. And I don't want to just throw this out. I want to think of a creative way to use this. So in the comments, let me know how I can repurpose the space. Okay, my wood's dry now, so I'm gonna go ahead and sand this. As you can see, I haven't got everything off. After you use a stripper, you still do have to sand. So I'm gonna start with a 120 sandpaper and smooth this out. There's actually a lot more varnish still left on here than I thought. So I'm gonna take a stronger, coarser sandpaper. I'm gonna use at 80 and try to get some of this off. To do the rounded part of the tabletop and get into the detail on the sides, I'm using one of my Surf Prep foam abrasives so I don't damage the wood. Once I was done using the 80 grit sandpaper, I'm using a tack cloth to remove all that dust. I'm not done sanding yet. Now I'm going to add that 120 back to my orbital sander and use that over the entire surface to smooth this out before staining. Once I sand the entire top with the 120, I'm going to be ready to stain. When you're working with a water-based stain, you really don't want to go any lower than a 120 or a 150, or you might risk the stain not absorbing. To finish this off, I'm just grabbing this little detail sander that I got. It's going to help me get into any of the little grooves that my orbital sander couldn't reach. So the easy way to install these legs is there is a bracket plate, and this screws right to whatever surface you're trying to adhere the leg in. As I was going to install my plates though, I realized I have a perfectly good screw that is right in place, and that's gonna help my legs sit more flush to the table. It's just gonna look more natural. The bracket would definitely work, but I wanted to get this as flush as I could. But this screw in my leg does not fit my hole that I had here. But I know how to fix it. What I'm gonna do is remove these screws. I'm gonna do some wood filler in here, a really strong epoxy bond filler. Let that set for a couple of hours. Then I'm gonna drill a new hole and put a new screw in here that is gonna fit this hole perfectly. To remove the bolt, you can use any type of pliers. This is probably the typical type of pliers you're gonna have in your toolkit, but I really love these needle nose pliers because they have dual functions and they have this little groove in here that's gonna help remove this bolt as well. So this is the screw I need to replace it with so it will fit into the hole that's on my table. It is a lot smaller, so I'm gonna have to fill that hole with a really strong epoxy so I can re-drill it. You can use a bunch of different wood fillers here. You just need to make sure that the directions say that is a hard enough cure to be re-drilled. These 2-part fillers that have a hardener in them are always a good choice. While that all-purpose putty is drying on my legs, I'm gonna flip this over and stain that because that needs a long time to dry before I can drill into that. I'm going for a natural raw wood look with this table, so I'm gonna use one of my favorite natural stains from Dixie Belle Paint Company. These are water-based, so they're really easy to work with. I'm gonna add just a little tinge of this denim to this because this tabletop is pulling really, really orange. And so to cancel out that orange look, you're gonna add just a little bit of blue, a little color theory to my stain. I'm working with 3 different types of wood here. The wood that is on top of the table, the wood that's on the side of the table, and then the legs are all different types of wood. So when I'm using a water-based stain, it's gonna give me a more uniform look. And I'm gonna put it on full strength and not do a slip coat of water because I want it to be more opaque. I still wanna see the wood grain, but I need all these different woods to match, and this is gonna help me achieve that. I am gonna mist my sponge a little bit just to help it absorb that stain. The side is really curvy and detailed, so I decided to use a synthetic smaller brush to get into all these details. This stain dries really quickly, so I was able to add my second coat after just 30 minutes, and I started by using this detail brush around the edge. I'm having a little bit more trouble than I anticipated getting all these wood tones to match. So what I love about these water-based stains is that they're really buildable. So I'm gonna switch to using a brush on the top for my second coat to get just a little bit more coverage. The staining pad is not leaving enough of the stain down there, and I really need to build it up to get everything to match. To keep this moving and flowing, I used this big brush as well as my spray bottle just to keep the surface wet so I could move this around and make sure it wasn't bunching up in areas. As you put this on, it's going to look really thick and like paint, but as it dries down, that wood grain is going to pop through. When I got new product, I would always start in the middle and then work it out to the sides. And once I got that whole section complete, I would do a long drag from top to bottom just to get all the brush strokes out. Once I was done with the top, I grabbed that tiny brush that I use for the side of the tabletop and did all the legs. These legs are so much easier to stain and turn around when they are not attached to the table, so I definitely recommend staining them before you attach them. Since the legs were raw to begin with, I only ended up adding 1 coat of stain and they matched the rest of the table. After my legs were dry and my wood epoxy had set for a couple of hours, I was able to drill a new pilot hole and attach my new bolts. Once all the legs were finished, it was time to attach them to the table. I am so excited. The legs are all even. A little tip for when you're installing the new legs, measure that little bolt to make sure that they're all even before you adhere them, but it's no wobble. So excited. Before I add the top coat to this to make it sealed and protected, when you use these water-based top coats, you can feel a little bit grainy on top. So I like to take a really fine sanding pad and just smooth it out before I add that top coat. I really love the color of the table as is, and I want to make it look as much and as close to as raw wood as I can. So I'm going to use Dixie Belle Clear Coat in flat. It's going to give it protection, but a beautiful flat finish. I'm going to use the sponge on the top to apply it, and then on the legs and the base, I'll use my synthetic mini. I love working with this top coat because it is very forgiving and I think super beginner friendly, especially when you are applying it with the sponge. You want to overlap your strokes by about 30% and make sure you have enough product on there. And just like I did with the paint, once I get a section done, I do one long stroke from the top to the bottom of the table. This top coat is ready to recoat after 2 hours. You just want to do a light sanding with a fine sanding pad in between, and you can add up to 3 coats. Just to remind you, here is the dated coffee table we started out with, and here it is now. This is so pretty. I had to bring it into the house and stage it just to see what it would look like in somebody's home. But if you have an old dated coffee table, look at what you could turn it into with just a little bit of sanding, a little bit of stain, and new legs. I hope this encourages you that you can tackle your coffee table. If you have any questions about this project, please leave them down in the comment box. Don't forget to subscribe and like this video before you leave, and I will be back soon with another video.